Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
Welcome back to a special edition of the I Hate It Here podcast. Today, we're getting spooky. It's HR Horror Stories Vol.2. Last year, we launched the first edition of HR Horror Stories, and this year, I'm back with tales that truly made my jaw drop all the way to the floor. And I can't be more excited to read them to you in their exact words as they were submitted. But first, before I get there, an origin story. Why do I love Halloween so much? You must have noticed in the newsletter and on the podcast, I've talked about how much I love Halloween. And it's not really about the dressing up or the candy or the paganism of it all. It's really about the fact that I like to be freaking terrified. And if you get it, you get it. Growing up, I watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I was terrified every episode, but I could not stop watching. And I watched Nightmare on Elm Street at a very young age, which resulted in me having a recurring nightmare to this day about Freddy Krueger chasing me around our home that I lived in when I was like 5 years old. So very wild, but horror holds a special place in my heart. Every year I rewatch the Scream franchise from start to finish, have a lot of love for that franchise and a lot of dislike as well. But I love horror, and I'm not, okay, let's be clear. I like funny horror, not like scary horror, like bloody and gore, not for me. So anyways, getting back to the point of this episode, HR Horror Stories. I launched the first edition last year, mostly because I'm obsessed with spooky season. And this year, the stories did not disappoint. My jaw dropped all the way to the floor. And I'm going to read them for you. And I'm going to read them for you in the exact wording that they were submitted, and then maybe give a little of my thoughts. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. This episode is a special edition, so I get to do whatever I want. Okay, let's start with our first story. I could give these funny names too, like I did in the news. So we'll call this one The Tale of the Bad Employee. Okay, here we go. Was hired as a temp, a 4-month stint, to cover for a people ops manager on parental leave. 3 weeks after I started, the people ops director unexpectedly announced he was leaving the company. He gave a month's notice and recommended me to fill his role. I was just a couple of months post-layoff at my last job, and I was excited for a more permanent and senior role. 10 days after he gave his notice, he walked me through his termination and severance payout in our payroll platform. 2 days after that, I got a call from our financial controller asking me if I was the one who had scheduled the severance payment. I gulped. Turns out, soon-to-be ex-boss secretly added one very important word, net, to his severance agreement. Instead of getting the $60K he negotiated via intimidation and threats to the CEO, he had me schedule $85K. And then he went in and changed the date of receipt, so he got the money immediately instead of after his final day. I was covered, though. I didn't manage his severance agreement, luckily. But I was able to say, listen, I looked at the signed agreement and it said net, and he had the math there for me. But then we also find out that he had been faking his PTO requests, inputting, getting them approved, and clearing them later on. So he had about $17K in vacation payout that was scheduled. I was able to cancel it, and another $15K in bonuses over what he was supposed to earn, but had overpaid by accident. Luckily, I wasn't implicated in any of this, but CEO trust in the people department is trashed. Everything I do is second-guessed, questioned, and questioned again. Oh, can't forget to add, he advocated for me running the department at half the salary he was making. Found this out later. And my title is People Ops Manager when his was People Ops Director. Feeling grateful to be employed, have benefits, and work remotely, but genuinely wondering if being good at a job even matters when I'm nervous every time I look at my office door. Y'all, I'm tired. And if there's one thing we know that is a true horror, it's knowing every day is going to be an uphill battle on an icy hill. Whew, what a wild ride. I cannot believe he edited his severance agreement. Actually, I can't believe that because nothing seems to surprise me anymore. But this just shows you sometimes people aren't good. And Also, I hate that this person now has to deal with the CEO who doesn't trust the people department because, I mean, I don't think a lot of HR teams would do something like this. There are obviously like edge cases and people out there that will do things like this. So it just sucks that the CEO is not happy with the people department. I really hope this person can win back the trust because it sounds like they're a good people ops person, but it is fresh hell is an uphill battle on an icy hill. Okay. Our next story. We will call this one the tale of the interesting meeting. Okay, here we go. During the height of the pandemic, an employee reached out to me saying they'd like to have a coffee and get to know me, something normal in our remote company. I said sure and scheduled it for later that week at 10 a.m. Meanwhile, I have a manager reach out to me saying he's concerned about one of his 9 employees and can we chat later that week? Once again, sure, I think nothing of it. I get on the call with the employee, and she seems very hyper, a little all over the place, but my company hires some very nerdy people, and it wasn't completely off brand for someone in her position. She was rambling on and then took a sip of a can with the label Truly. Having limited interactions with alcoholic seltzer, I quickly Google if Truly sells non alcoholic drinks. As I do, she takes another sip from the can. She does it again, and I'm not able to get a screenshot. I'm in shock that I uncharacteristically say nothing, and quickly the call comes to an end. I look up who her manager is, and sure enough, it's the one I'm supposed to speak with that afternoon. I call him and he said, yeah, I've been trying to get more information or proof, but her team is saying that she's been coming to work drunk. I tell him my experience and we agree on termination. At termination, her only question is why she would not be getting a warning. Other than that, no questions. Until later in the day, after termination, we sent her all her offboarding documents. She responds with one line, did you forget to include severance? I responded simply, no. For the life of me, pour that Truly in a cup. Why would an employee show up drunk, drinking from the can for a get to know you with the meeting with the VP of HR? I had mixed emotions reading this horror story because I get the HR perspective of like inappropriate to come to work drunk, or it's probably in your handbook that they can't do that. It's probably definitely in your handbook they can't do that. But the other part of me, as I read the story, was really thinking about the employee and how maybe they're really struggling and could have needed some help. And maybe the behavior was like that because they wanted to get caught and they wanted someone to try to help them. Addiction is like a very serious issue, and I'm not a skilled expert at it, but this part to me really stood out, and I had a ton of empathy for the HR person and also for the employee who maybe probably needs some help. So it definitely feels like a horror story, but also I thought worthy to include because there is the other part of it about the employee, and I just feel really bad reading it. So that's a horror story. Not a great one. Let's move on to a different horror story. This one, I'm not even going to give a name because it's only one sentence and I just could not. I laughed so hard when I read this. Um, Somebody left a rubber ducky and a small plastic dinosaur in a suggestive position on a table in the empty cafeteria, and the next person who came in was highly offended and wanted it addressed by the company. Um, okay. Sorry, I'm not supposed to be like laughing while I read these ones, but no matter how many times I read this one, I just laugh because we have all been there when an employee complains about something so ridiculous that you're just like, we are adults. Like, just move on. And also, like, maybe it was an accident. I don't know. Like, it's just a rubber ducky and a small plastic dinosaur. And also, I get it. I don't know. I get it, but also it just made me laugh because I've had similar ridiculous comments like this. I think one of my favorites was when working in office, we had a gender neutral and then a female and a male bathroom. And someone came out of the male bathroom and was like, hey, there's no toilet paper in there. And I was like, great. How would I know that? Like I don't use that bathroom. Also, there's a gender neutral bathroom and we tell all of you where the toilet paper is. So all you had to do was go over and get the toilet paper and put it in your bathroom. But I don't know. This just reminded me of that story because I remember at the time being so dumbfounded that a man would come up to me and tell me there's no toilet paper in his bathroom. And how would I know that if I couldn't use the bathroom? Anyways, I don't know. Maybe he was trying to be helpful, but he knew where the toilet paper was. So I still feel right about this one. But this made me laugh because I know every HR person has a story of somebody utterly ridiculous comment, but sure, if the person felt triggered by the dinosaur and the rubber ducky, please be sure to address it at a company meeting. Okay, this next horror story I'm going to call The Tale of Do Not Disturb. So this actually happened to a friend, but it's a true horror. A woman who worked for a call center received a phone, and their phones automatically pick up if they are on Do Not Disturb. She had stepped away to, I believe the way they phrased it was, engage with herself in a sexual manner. A customer called, the phone answered, and the customer heard it all. It was also recorded, and they had to play the recording for the woman when they talked with her about it, with her sitting in the room. She made up an excuse that she was watching a movie, but as I too heard the recording, it was clear what she was doing. She was terminated. Whew. Honestly, as I was recording this episode earlier, I had an alarm go off on my phone because I hadn't put myself on Do Not Disturb, but this story, oh boy, if I had to be in the room playing that recording, I would have been a consummate professional because I am a professional, but I, I, I would not be well. That is all I'm going to say about this story. Okay, we're going to call this one The Tale of Lack of Gratitude. We recently put together a staff appreciation party, and the owners were tasked to give an appreciation speech. When I asked one of the owners if she was ready, she said, "I don't have anything to say." She then asked the other owner, and she said, "I've had a busy day. I was not prepared to do this." Meanwhile, I was tasked to pretend all is well and the staff is appreciated. Did they forget I'm part of the staff? You don't have a simple thank you to give? I hate it here. Me too. You would be surprised. People forget like thank you is free. You could literally just get the staff together and say, "Thank you so much for your hard work." And that would have been fine versus saying, "I don't have anything to say and I've been busy. I'm not prepared to do this." Just say thank you and move on. I too hate it here. Okay. This story we're going to call The Tale of the Group Text. Here we go. Whew, I have to really mentally prepare myself for this one. Setting: a small town, Midwest city, declining in population, but a thriving steel town in its heyday. It starts with a female employee resigning. She says she can no longer be part of the group that hangs out outside of work and she needs to create a break. Then hands me her cell phone and tells me to pay attention to the group text she points to. Tells me she's leaving her phone with me for the afternoon and will pick it up after her shift. Tells me to print or forward whatever I want, but says, "I don't want to be a part of any of that stuff," pointing to her phone. I print a total of 36 pages of text with some of the most bizarre stuff I've ever seen. Turns out there was a bit of a sex ring taking place with the second shift lead as the organizer. He wasn't a particularly attractive guy, but managed to organize a group of women for his pleasure. One woman got pregnant and left the group. The others began to discuss in the group chat how they could kill her and raise the baby together. That's when the current employee drew a line and stepped away. We turned it all over to the police. The woman was too stunned to speak. When I read this horror story, I read it to about 3 different people first because I was like, you cannot believe the horror story I read. This reads like a plot to a limited series starring Kate Winslet. Like, what in the world? First of all, I have so many questions. Killing people, not cool. Putting it in text, are you stupid? Also, sex ring? First of all, I mean, I can't. there's no shaming the people for doing what they want to do. Sure, have your sex ring. But, murder, not cool. And I am very proud of the employee who drew a line and stepped away because you're just not a murderer. Also, I just keep coming back to this should be a TV show. Someone needs to contact Kate Winslet's people. If you know them and you're listening, honestly, call me in. I would love to just read her this story, after I tell her how much I loved Titanic growing up and how she's one of my favorite actors. And oh God, the one time she wore that YSL dress to the Oscars, one of the beautiful dresses I've ever seen. Anyways, okay, back to the horror story. Are y'all kidding me? I have one note to make on this. I don't even know how to print a text. So if someone knows how to do that, can you contact me, please? A lot of things do not surprise me anymore. This horror story did. Truly, I cannot believe we do this job. Okay. Let me get to maybe one or two more horror stories. I'm sorry. I know you love this episode. You want me to do more of this. Again, you can always write in and tell me to do more. You can always write in and tell me your horror story. I had to hear a lot of horror stories this week, actually. Okay, here's my next one. We're going to call this one The Tale of the Unhinged CEO. I worked at a small manufacturing company in Western Maryland in the early 2000s. What a time to be alive. Our CEO used to write emails in all caps, baby blue font, and when printed could be 1 to 2 full pages. The contents, not the paper trail any half-wit person, let alone a GC, would ever want. But the man thought he was invincible. Don't they all? He found most of his inspiration at 3 a.m. What a glorious way to start the morning when opening your inbox at 8. Once he vacationed in Bora Bora. He chose to share vacation pics with the entire company. Some of them included him in a Speedo. The censure? What? There can't be more after the Speedo. Oh, yes. He had the gall to suggest that all of you should visit Bora Bora. Did I mention most people were making $10 to $14 an hour? Then at the very end, there's the head exploding emoji, head face melting emoji, smile emoji. Had to include those. I love an emoji. This story gave off such Michael Scott vibes. Like, when he vacations with Jan and then shares the picture with everyone. If you're not an Office fan, I'm sorry. I know a lot of people hate sitcoms, but I fucking love them. So, when he vacations with Jan and he shares the Office pic and he gets a little hair beading thing. This story just read just like Michael Scott. Early 2000s, baby blue font. I have questions. Like, sir, can you read that? Also, 1 to 2 pages. What are you typing? It is not a novel. This is not MySpace or LiveJournal. This is work, sir. Maybe he really just wanted, honestly, a LiveJournal. And not the paper trail any half-wit person would want. I'm dire to know what was in those 1 to 2 full pages. Probably ridiculous nonsense. Like, if you have to this is the caution I give every single person. Just don't put it in writing. Like, if you're going to be crazy and say things, sorry, we're not using the word crazy. If we are going to be wild and say things, we maybe should not put them in text, but to each their own. And honestly, you deserve to get caught if you're silly enough to put them in text. And honestly, you probably just shouldn't be saying the things that you're saying, okay? Okay, CEOs, if you're listening, I'm real heated this morning. Stop saying things. Stop saying silly things. Stop putting them in writing. Just stop. Take a lesson. Okay, let's see. I have maybe a few more stories to share with you if you're down for it. I mean, you're listening, so if you're not down for it, just end the episode and leave. But don't tell me because that would hurt my feelings. Okay, here's another one. We're going to call this one The Tale of Bad References. I'm really spot on with these titles. I was checking references provided by the applicant, and one reference said, I'm not going to say anything, but just Google them. So I did. And I found a series of articles about criminal charges, court dates, and a conviction. The candidate had been a caretaker for the mother of the person listed as a reference, and had been forging checks and stealing from his mother. Again, she provided this man's name and contact information as a reference. HR is such a weird world. I wish I wish that this had never happened to me, but this had also happened to me where someone submitted a reference and the reference was like, absolutely not. You should not hire this person. This would be the worst decision you've ever made. And I just got to say, why would you put them as a reference? Like, I am too also delulu and think people would only say nice things about me. But why would you put the person as a reference that you were convicted against for forging their checks and stealing from their mother? In what reality was that a good reference? Okay, I'm done. I'm being shouty, and I will stop shouting at you because that's just not fair. You're listening to my podcast. Why would I shout at you? Um, Also, this just proves I should not be allowed to record episodes alone because I just ramble and say things to you. So if you're listening to this, happy Halloween. You're doing great. Thank you for making it this late in the episode. Let me see if I can pull together one final HR horror story. Like, maybe I should tell one of my own. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay. I'm going to tell this last story. So I'm sorry, we've reached the end. Oh, actually, I have two. Just kidding. Okay, here we go. We're going to call this one The Tale of the Mediator. Okay. One time, I was mediating a very heated argument between a manager and their direct report. Both were yelling at each other, and I asked them to please stop yelling so we could have a productive conversation. However, both were inching physically closer to one another. Sensing a confrontation, I stepped between them, brave, and asked them to both sit down immediately. The direct report then stormed towards their manager and started to pepper spray them. However, in the process, I also got hit with it, and that shit really does burn. Needless to say, the authorities were called, the employee was immediately terminated, and that is still the wildest HR employee relations situation I have ever been a part of. Oh my God. If I was Peppers, I actually don't know what I would do. I would lose my mind. I do not like my eyes to burn when I put a contact in. You think I'm going to like my eyes to burn when I have pepper spray in them? No, thank you. That is wild. Oh, I feel so bad for that HR person. And I'm glad that the employee was immediately fired. Like, that is not okay. This last horror story, I'm so sorry. Our time has come to an end together. I hope you have really appreciated and loved this episode of me just reading stories and rambling to you. This last one, I'm not even giving a name. I just can't. Okay, here it is. I work for a healthcare company, and somebody posted to catch a pervert video of one of our employees soliciting sex from a minor wearing our logoed scrubs. Ah! Unfortunately for him, he resigned before I could fire him, and I don't think I could have kept my anger and disgust in check. What in the world? I, mm, I hope this person was reported. Obviously, I mean, if they were caught on video, they definitely are hopefully serving jail time because that's disgusting and awful. And even as an HR person, like, we just get exposed to so much stuff that nobody knows all of our past traumas either. And some days I think no one has empathy for the fact that, like, we have to deal with everybody. And there might be moments where, like, we're triggered too. Like, I just can't. Wow, I'm ending that. I feel like I'm ending on a sad note, and I should really end on the note of the dinosaur and the plastic ducky being reported for being in uncomfortable positions. This has been such a fun episode. Yes, I said fun 3 times because I'm demanding that you think it's also fun because then I get to do this again next year. If you have an HR horror story yourself that you would like to be submitted, maybe read on another podcast episode, you know what to do. There's a form. I'll include it in the notes for this episode. Also, just reach out to me with your horror story. I'd be more than happy to read it. But if you want to preserve your anonymity, and I very deeply respect that, then you can submit it to the form. Anyways, this was another episode of the I Hate It Here podcast. I'll be back on Monday with more about Zones of Genius. If you love this, please like it, subscribe to it, send it to your boss passive aggressively so that they understand the horrors that we're dealing with. Maybe send it to a friend, maybe send it to like a famous celebrity that you might know, that you might want me to meet, someday. Anyways, they really should not let me be on this mic. I appreciate you so much for spending time with me today and listening to these horror stories. Also, if you don't like this episode and you don't like me, I'm also willing to hear that feedback. Listen, I'm not for everyone, but I deeply respect your time. And if you got to the end of this and thought, wow, she should never do this again, I will listen to that feedback because I love feedback. Anyways, I am so thankful that you are here. And if you are an HR person listening to this, sorry, everybody else, but if you're an HR person, listen to this. I just want you to know you are going to have a great day. You're going to have a great week. You're going to do really impactful work, and nobody can stop you because you are so powerful and so great. And if you're doing bad things, stop doing bad things. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much. I'm Hibby Yusuf. Catch me on all your socials, in your ears, in your inbox, on your TikTok, wherever you want to find me. I'm there. I'm your friend. Have a great day, and bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.